Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Akash. Trying to get my screen sharing started. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, I think I have our report open and the notes. Okay, great. Nathan, just before we get started, what's the process of making a GitHub repo for the charts? Like, I know you made one for the GitHub action.
So that was more or less, I created one where I did all my kind of original prep work, in my own little private repo under my account. And then eventually I talked to Sajay and Lockie, and they set one up under the official banner.
Yeah, so we talked about moving our charts to a different repository. So I was just wondering what is the most appropriate location? Like, I'm just seeing like what other projects live. Do you know what is Kubernetes SIG?
I don't know.
Special interest groups.
Special interest groups.
Yeah, that's where they incubate like detailed projects, like the CSI driver was done there. There are projects like Kind, different admission controllers.
I see. So if we were to move our charts, what is the most appropriate location? Would it be still under this lab, since our GitHub action is also there?
Yes. For now, I think you can take a look at Gatekeeper. They have a way in which they publish their charts under, I think it's GitHub.io, right?
Let me have a look. So
if you look at our README, there's a install command for Gatekeeper right now.
Oh, yep. Right here.
You see the first line? Yep. So that's the Open Policy Agent repo, and under that there is a Gatekeeper, Open Policy Agent org, and under that there's a Gatekeeper repository, and you can publish the charts through that. So GitHub.io is just enabling GitHub pages on a specific repository. So you can enable the pages on this repository if you want.
Okay, I'll look into this.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Teja. Okay. Reviewing PRs on our list. I know, Akash, you've responded to some of the PR comments by Teja, and one of the comments I saw was related to invalidating the items in the cache. Just curious, how do we do it for the registry client, since we have a 12-hour expiry on that?
So we have a separate map that we keep track of to map the client to some sort of expiry. And then every time you use it, the first thing it does, it checks, is it still valid? But with this one, it's separate because the cache is actually just a local store, an OCI local store, the ORS implementation of it. So if we want to have some sort of eviction, so it manually goes and removes stuff from the local store, we need to add some sort of map where maybe we map like blob digest to some sort of timestamp, and if it's stale or if it's past some sort of date, then we have to go manually have some routine that will pluck it out of the local store and toss it. So we could definitely do that. I kind of recommended maybe we add an issue and then add it after the fact, if that's okay.
Yeah, especially if it's existing behavior, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, sounds good. Please add an issue. Just when you say the registry client, like when we next use the item, we invalidate it. Can we do the same with the artifact hash? So we're not actively removing stuff, but when we are visiting the same. But I guess the problem is it'll grow.
Yeah, so I think the biggest issue that Teja also recommended is that if the pod is just going to be alive and is never going to be restarted, then it'll just keep growing. So there should be at least some mechanism where, apart from restarting, where it gets thrown out of the local store. So yeah, I think we can probably follow the same sort of logic for that, but I'm not sure yet. I'd have to take a closer look. So.
Yep. Teja, do you have any additional feedback on the RS to V2?
No, beyond what I added already, I don't have any additional.
Akash, what's the state on it? Is it ready for review again?
Yes, just maybe, I think I've addressed almost like all of the comments except for that one that we just discussed. So if you want to give a quick glance over and it looks good, then we can kind of merge that in. So.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Teja. Thank you, Akash.
Thanks, Teja.
The next PR, it's the same PR that I had open from last week, but I realized there's another issue when we're trying to load the directory in the cluster, is that every file ends up being two different files, one symbolic link and a physical file in the same directory. So I've added a mechanism to track the path of the physical file and only load the certificate if it's a physical path that we've not seen before. So, right here, I've added some logic to check if the path is a symbolic link and try to resolve it if it is, so we don't duplicate the certificate. So please take a look. And also I realized Akash and Teja, I don't think I can request review from YouTube because both of you are not collaborator. Yeah, collaborator. Is that true?
You can add me in the comments, I think. The comments or the conversation box.
Yep.
Then I think you can add me as a reviewer, I guess.
Sounds good. Gosh. Yep, thank you.
I think I had added a comment. Did it not show up, Susan?
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any
Okay.
comment from you, because sometimes when you add a comment to a review, you have to publish it for it to be like you have a choice to submit a single comment or start a review when you type.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I probably just didn't hit the publish button. I'll go back and add that.
Yeah, I'll watch for your comment. Thank you. Next item on the list. Yeah, we had a conversation. Some internal team, Microsoft team, is reached out and was asking about the performance of pooling the artifacts. And in this discussion, there was some interesting point about the Gatekeeper timeout. I know Akash has started looking into what's the issue. Akash, do you want to talk about it and tell us your findings?
Yep. So yeah, this is just from this morning, so pretty preliminary at this point. But one of the teams that was also running into this issue, they had kind of done some of their own investigation on the side, and they believe that at this point, Gatekeeper could probably return back to the 5-second timeout or higher, because the original reason Gatekeeper had reduced the timeout was because in the Kubernetes version 1.17, Kubernetes had decided to migrate the way they do leader election from using endpoints or config map resources to using a lease resource, which is, I guess, a new Kubernetes resource that they'd introduced. And the way they had decided to do this was to migrate it in phases. So they would first create like some sort of hybrid endpoint plus lease approach. So it was with 2 resources that would have to be updated every time you wanted to renew the leader. And then afterwards, once that sat for a couple versions, they would remove the hybrid approach and go directly to only using a lease object. So it looks like now in version 1.20 and greater, they've switched over to using the lease approach solely as the default, which would make it seem like now that there's only one resource that has to be updated or verified from Gatekeeper, we wouldn't have the same race condition that had caused the initial timeout to be decreased. Yeah, so if that is the case, I went through the Kubernetes code and I do see that the default is now this lease approach. I just don't know if there are other concerns on Gatekeeper's end that aren't related to this as to why they wouldn't be willing to go higher. But in any case, I'm thinking of opening an issue on the Gatekeeper repo and pointing this out to them just in case if they missed it, and then seeing if, you know, if they're okay with increasing the default. Or maybe there's another reason why they haven't yet. And one more thing, the version, so the original issue where they lowered the timeout, they put the Kubernetes version that they were using that has the issue, and it was 1.17. So it kind of lines up with the same school of thought. So yeah. Hopefully, maybe this is a glimmer of hope that we might be able to expand the timeout also, which would be great. We could potentially double or even more the timeout if that's the case. So yeah.
This is cool. So you don't have, we can delay this a little more is what you're saying.
Yes, if I'm understanding everything right. And I think the other Microsoft team that was brought this point up, they also came to a similar conclusion that that's probably what can happen. Rather than 3 seconds, we could go up to 5, which was the original amount, or maybe we could even go up to like 7 or 8, because it seems like the issue is capped at whatever the 10-second timeout is on the controller manager or scheduler side, which is their timeout. So maybe 10 is the ceiling now. And even if they don't want to increase the default up to 10 on the Gatekeeper side, we can potentially override the Ratify Gatekeeper chart to use a higher default threshold. So
Okay.
that could also be the quick, immediate solution to this problem.
That's cool. So that means we can reprioritize this a little less urgent.
Yeah, this is all just preliminary. So this is if if my thought process is correct. But yeah, so first would be to get confirmation from the Gatekeeper folks to see if this is actually the reason that they were held up on this issue.
You were also planning to attend the Helm team meeting, right? Like, do you have any updates from that?
Yeah, so Susan and I, we attended the meeting last week, and they had put us on the schedule, but looks like they had a lot of other triaging issues that they had to attend to, so they never got to us. They just told us to come back this week. So no updates on that end. If this Kubernetes issue is actually a solution, do you think it's still worth to attend the meeting and kind of go through that Helm pre-validation flows well with them, or?
No, I think what I'm hearing is that you have time to visit this. I would rather we fix up the other things in Ratify, like support, what you said, just kind of like complete up the SPDX cloud data. There's a bunch of stuff that we need to do, right? So maybe cleaning that up might be better, more than anything else. Let's maybe, unless you have time to do nothing else, go for it. I don't think that's the case. So let's see if we can maybe delay that a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
Akash, I can just attend the Helm dev meeting just to see if it's if it fits the use case. Just kind of briefly talk about the scenario.
Sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just a question, like if Gatekeeper, I think Eric mentioned that there's a deprecation schedule in Azure Kubernetes. So I read up their documentation, like there's still many mentions of 1.15, 1.16. So yes, 1.2 has been GA'd for a year, but have they deprecated the older versions?
Yeah, it's a good question. An initial answer I reached out to a friend of mine on AKS who manages the version control for them, and seems like they're about to they mainly support greater than 1.2. 1.2 is GA, 1.21, 1.22 is GA, and they're probably going to GA 1.23 soon. So I would assume maybe they do have backward support too for older versions, but not sure. Yeah.
Also, we need to, like, does Gatekeeper also have the same deprecation policy as AKS, or do they have a different story there?
Yeah,
I think the next step is to create an issue on the Gatekeeper side, so we can start the discussion. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. So I'll kind of put all of that in that issue and then see what they say. So.
Yep. Sounds great. Yeah, the next item on the agenda is prioritization. So Akash was wondering, what should he look into next? So I picked a few items from our issues list. The first one is, we talked about a little bit with when the artifact type parameter is null, its success was true, which is a bug to be fixed. But there was another issue that if notary is configured, if there's no signature, its success should be false, because the primary functionality is to validate the signature. And the other item is we don't have any test at the integration level test right now. And Akash also brought up with the performance investigation that do we need to perform concurrent verifications for different plugins? So Sajay and Teja, which item do you think we should tackle next?
Sorry, what performance item? Because that I heard just now that will be deprioritized, right? Is this a different performance item?
Yes, it's been deprioritized. Previously, we had a 3-second timeout, and if we had different verifiers, that we could easily go over the 3 seconds.
Yep. Then that will not be on top of our priority list, right? As of now, based on the update from Akash.
Yeah. My suggestion was to review the verification result next, because
yes,
we have a few bugs, and there's also no way to configure the policy that makes sure there's a signature on the artifact.
I see. Okay, so there was this some policy, right, in the Ratify configuration related to all or any. So you wanted to just visit it and find it if it is correct or not. Correct? Is that correct?
Yes, it's an item that Eric and I were talking about before, where if there's a SBOM but no signature on the image, the verification result is success, and there's no way to enforce a signature today.
Okay. Yeah, I think that seems important. Yep.
Akash, are you happy to take that item?
Yep. I'll
Ironing out the final result of the executor, right? How it combines the results from multiple verifiers based on the policy.
Yes, yeah, that's it's the overall success strategy. So what actually goes into determining them? It's a little bit gray, I guess, right now.
Yeah, it's the aggregated result from all the verifiers.
Yep.
I see. Yeah. And also we identified the schema is not consistent, right? In case of success and failure, some properties are missing.
Yeah, Akash, we were looking at the artifact type input parameter. Is that correct? Maybe Teja, are you at your computer today? Maybe I can go to that code and you can provide some context.
I looked into no, Susan. I'll be driving very soon. I
Okay,
looked at
no
your
problem.
Slack comment actually. Yeah. You said of the artifact type, right? Shouldn't it be part of the reference descriptor? The descriptor that we get for a reference.
Yes, it would be, but the way it's set up now is that we have verify parameters, if you recall, that include the subject as well as the artifact type that could be provided. And that's defined at the executor level. So when the handler actually gets the verify request and it sets up the executor, it only provides the subject because that's all it knows at that point of time. Maybe we need to do it so that once the subject descriptor is resolved, we can pass the reference types, the artifact type in the subject in the reference descriptor that's found at that point, instead of relying upon the whatever is specified in the verify parameter. Because right now at this point, what Susan is highlighting, that parameter is empty in the case of when we have the Ratify server running, because we just don't populate it with anything.
See. Who creates verify parameter? Maybe I'll take a look and come back to you. I don't want to waste your time. Yeah. Something seems odd here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think let's iron this out. Yeah, let's fix this behavior.
Yeah, thanks, Teja.
I'll post I'll post my analysis or whatever I found, whatever I understood something on the Slack. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, so Akash, as I understand it, like because this is default to true, there's no reference type, therefore we will give a success result. Yeah, Akash, you're on mute.
Yeah, that's what happened. That's what's happening right now. So I think even if we change it to false, I don't know if we're going to get the opposite problem then, where it's going to be failing every time.
Yeah, because the reference type is empty, so it. Yeah. But how would you determine which reference type to validate? Because let's say you have both Notary and Cosign plugin configured.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we need a little bit more information on, because the way it's done and the way it works with the CLI implementation is that it's a flag that's passed in when you do ratify verify. You can pass in an artifact types flag. and whatever you pass in there is used as the reference types. I believe, if I'm correct. So that's where that's populated there, but we don't have any user intervention there. We have to kind of either it be another field in the configuration, maybe that's what we have to do, where in the executor plugin section of the JSON, you specify, hey, I want to make sure to check these types explicitly. Maybe that's one solution.
Yeah. At some point, the user have to specify exactly what they want to validate.
Yep.
Cool. I think that's everything on our agenda today. Does anyone have anything else?
Oh, Susan, were you able to get unblocked on the workload identity key vault stuff?
No. So I read the instruction by, I think, on their docs page. So it had very little information about workload identity. A lot of tutorials were about pod identity. So I'm actually going to reach out to Anish to like maybe they're in progress updating their documentation.
Okay.
And I'm currently not blocked because I need the directory load PR to merge first before I modify the Helm chart to support multiple certs.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like I will look into moving our Helm chart to a different repository next.
Okay. Cool.
I have another question with this 5 second. Like, if they agreed to, like, what's the time limit that we're comfortable with? Are we comfortable with 5 seconds, or do we need it to be 10 seconds? Like, what is our, our line?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, five at a minimum would be nice, but it all depends on like how Ratify expands in the future. Like if we're gonna have someone use a lot of verifiers with very complex artifactory with many different policies, then that would mean more time in its current implementation without any sort of like performance enhancements. So I was thinking if we could get like 7, maybe 7 is enough, but yeah, it's very much a shot in the dark at this point. I don't know what the right number is, so more is better. So.
Yeah, I feel like at some point we will have to implement the concurrent verification.
Yeah, but I think maybe just getting the full end-to-end case use case up and running, and then as we see more usage, then we can maybe focus on like improving that.
Yeah, sounds good. Any other comments, Sajay, Nathan?
And one question before I drop off. I wanted to kind of like understand, how do we ensure that we do the work to require a signature for this one in some time window? Because I think requiring a signature is probably the first scenario that we want to tackle. I'm having a conversation with David Tesser, who's the PM for all the signature work, to understand if we can, what would be the scenario that we're going to go after. Will it be CI/CD? Will it be Kubernetes? And once we chart that out, but there needs to be a way in which when we should be able to author something that Ratify can understand and can make sure that a signature or something associated with that specific image or artifact is validated. That's the missing part that I feel is the highest priority at this point, because we're not going after the timeout anymore. So maybe Akash, we can start working with David Tesser to kind of at least understand what would be a candidate scenario, and we'll kind of like bring it here and create a work item to kind of sort it out. So right now, what is the thinking? Where are we at in terms of requiring a specific verifier?
I think the discussion that we just had is about that, is related to that. How can we honor a policy if we said that a signature should be present and at least one signature should be valid? How do we convey that, and how do we enforce that in the executor? That's the discussion we were having just right before you brought this point. Maybe
Right.
Susan or Akash. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get to is, from a priority perspective, it looks like that is the first thing you're going to go after, right? Is that correct? I probably missed the conversation altogether because I'm multitasking.
Yep, that is the next. Yes, that
Okay.
will be the top item in the list.
Right. The other thing was, are we going after using OPA as the defining mechanism, or are we doing something else? Because if that's the case, then bringing in OPA into Ratify might be the next thing to do before we even bother with policies, right?
But I don't know where we are with the policy engine for Ratify. Did we make any progress?
No, we haven't done anything. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Like, before if we come up with, hey, this is how you mandate that a signature needs to be present. If it's going to be through OPA, then we might as well do the work to start the OPA work, OPA integration before we go with policy definition. That's what I'm trying to understand, which order do we want to go? It's more like an open question.
I think we first need to gather the requirement, maybe scope it to 1 or 2 requirements and start thinking how to implement it. Does it require a sophisticated OPA policy engine, or can it be done through configuration? And I feel we should start with some use cases. Or what do you think?
That sounds good. So I think we'll work with we'll kind of put together requirements then much better.
And Sajay, who is the OPA contact that we could reach out to?
So Gatekeeper is inside the OPA project. So I think if you reach out to Sartak, he'll at least tell you who you can talk to. They'll have another meeting that you might now probably want to. There is a Slack channel. There is a Slack channel that you can reach out if you want. But do you need to talk to OPA though? I mean, it's just a matter of using it, right?
I see. And when you say the OPA policy, so what does a sample policy like today? How does it just say core ratify on this image and make sure it's valid, like it looks valid?
Right now, I don't think we actually understand OPA policies. We kind of delegate it to Gatekeeper to do everything, and it just says, "Hey, here's the image, and that's it." What I'm thinking, or at least from what we're discussing here, what I'm understanding is that we want to be able to tell in Ratify that, hey, I've got an image. This image has a policy of it needs a signature and it needs at least one signature, or it needs an SBOM and a signature, or it needs a vulnerability scan and a signature. Those kind of policies we should be able to represent. I know that for certain there are customers who want to establish that this image has been scanned, and that means it needs to have a scan result and an associated signature for that scan result. So how do we represent that is going to be the challenge. But like they just said, let's get a requirement sorted out, and then we can say enforce one artifact and a sub artifact or a nested artifact as a requirement. Like, that's maybe some way to start, and then we'll decide upon the implementation by language through OPA or language just as some kind of policy definition, much more simpler policy definition, that if this image, then that kind of a thing. But I don't know what the requirement is right now.
And I think in our design docs, Susan, I remember having a doc where it talks about the policies, 2 models of policies using OPA policies, the Rego language or the regular configuration. It should be in design docs, how to use policies.
Is this the right directory?
Yeah, somewhere here it should be in the actual. I remember documenting about the OPA policies and all the design doc. If it is not there, I'll share it with you. Yeah, I'll find it out. Right now I'm driving. Yeah. Yeah, set of policies to make decisions. Yep. It's about that. So down below there should be a policy section, is my understanding. Yeah, policy engine. Some kind of break glass. So here there is two modes. One is by configuration, or if you can go down by OPA. The rego.
So would the idea be that we would be able to consume the OPA and then?
Yeah. We need to invoke OPA libraries to parse this and get the decision.
Okay, got it.
Just like the Gatekeeper does. Exactly how Gatekeeper leverages the underlying, the decision making is done by the OPA engine.
Mhm.
And that they do by invoking their libraries. Like that, we also will include OPA libraries and then make this decision.
Got it. Okay.
Anyhow, I'll drop off. Okay, Susan, I'll on my side, the action item, I have to get back to you on that reference type code, right? Somewhere. Can you just share me that line of the code in the Slack channel, Susan?
Yeah.
Or Akash, any one of you. Yeah.
Yep. We'll do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Akash, just looking at this policy, does this policy say match anything that's Azure CR.io, right?
Yeah.
It's what
Yeah.
I'm reading here. And so maybe if we are going with the OPA policy, the OPA policy would be like match on the signature. So when it was invoking Ratify, you're kind of saying the image will have a signature.
Yeah. I hadn't.
Then the
fully-
validation will fail if it wasn't valid.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that's how it would.
The workflow would be.
And then because we would process the OPA, the policy, and then using that we would generate what the overall success story should look like. Because at the end of the day, Gatekeeper is probably still going to only ingest the pass or no pass that we currently do, which is the whole valid, invalid. But I think it ratifies, that's what the whole engine that Teja's talking about, we're going to have to determine that by looking at whatever the OPA policies are. I don't know how the libraries look like for them. How do you actually translate, and what it'll look like for us? What can we interact with? So I guess that's also another thing to look into. I think Teja had probably done some research in that arena, but yeah.
Yeah, sounds like we will need to read up on the OPA policies.
Yeah, I guess so. This would be like the next big thing to work on. Yep.
Yeah, and how does the reference type get passed through in this flow?
I think the reference type would have to be passed in as an OPA policy. Like it would be like it needs to have
These
the
references.
notary
Yeah.
signature or whatever. That's where it would be specified. Because
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. Once we understand the use case and the requirements a bit better, we can update our sample to be a more realistic sample. And in the case that, nothing was passed, we probably should fail.
this is the whole like fail through or pass through, because it's like, well, if you don't provide anything, you don't want to check anything.
Yeah, if you didn't want us to validate anything, we'll
you wouldn't
tell
provide
you.
anything.
Yeah, if they didn't tell us to validate anything, why did we validate at all then?
Yeah, because that should be kind of the first thing that is checked, right? Like if you didn't provide anything, don't go through any of this.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a few gaps there for sure.
Yeah, because at the moment it's the result is a bit conflicting, because we said is success true. By the way, this validation failed.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And I think after discussion, I have a better understanding of the design and the gaps.
Yep. Yeah. Same here. I didn't realize there was the whole OPA policy aspect of it too. So I should probably take a look at this as well.
Yeah, sounds great. Nathan, do you have any questions or any other additional items?
Nothing today.
Okay, cool. Good to see everyone.
Mhm.
Have a good week.
All right.
Thanks,
Hi.
everyone.